Well, hello everyone. Here, show you right here is the questions problems, and basically that this activity right here is what I worked right here are a few pictures right here, and from some of them are from my early childhood, and I think even some of them are even were even taken before I even started school right here. You see right here is a picture right here. I would have been right here on a swing right here, and this right here, I'm sure I would have only been about 4 or 5 or something like that. So just thinking about as to where looking at this picture right here, and I'm also thinking about, well, I may have been about maybe 4 or 5 or so in that picture, but then thinking about that, I didn't start school until I was about 6, 6 or 7, something like that. So just thinking about as to where, like for any problem, so, and I know some of the stuff right here is like for the, my Photoshop work right here, and as well as, for Illustrator, but on the other hand, that, like for any kids or anybody that, if you're going to be what you call, born with any kind of, problems, any type of disorders or anything like that, or that you may have developed them, maybe ever since you were about maybe 10 or 12 or maybe 5 years old. So it's like thinking about that, for any type of assistance, that more likely that like what anybody would need. And the way I think about those, I include right here is like this help button right here. And with this help button, I include like these messages right here. And these messages, the messages basically say it's like for, for assistance needed for the person, when they are, need for the help of understanding something as well as understanding times like for consuming for what it matters to where to show improvement. So this right here, that I know that I keep thinking note as to where that a number of times that if it's maybe if it's going to be what you call for how to handle something, and for most of my childhood, I could probably say, besides the reading glasses or any glasses, which I know that these pictures right here would have been taken, before, I guess, yeah, that ever since I was in the third grade, it was that whenever I started needing glasses just to see, just to be able to read the board or something like that, or just to be able to read a book or so, and like with any the teachers or anybody that they may warrant, or that for any problems that more likely that you would have, and thinking a lot of times that almost anything that more likely that I would try to handle independently on my own is like solving my own problems. It seems like a lot of that was basically to where that a certain amount of hours of training or practice. If most of us have heard that before, practice makes perfect. So do we all often hear about maybe practice makes professional, or it's like if it's going to be like say that for anything that is related to it, that more you practice, the more that you'll be good at. But just like if everybody say you try to play the musical instrument like the piano or the guitar or any type of musical instrument like that, and thinking about that those tunes that more likely that may not sound so great compared to maybe like the other type of musicians or anything like that, any type of musical players. But on the other hand, that you see right here are some examples right here of this right here would be like, say, some work that I could have been working on. I was thinking about maybe adding in more details, but I'm also thinking about, well, just to make sure that I don't confuse anybody going from one page to another here, just stay with just one page right here. And if anybody that may warrant to where that you're gonna be like maybe for say that for like maybe for next week that people want to know some more information about that. And I was also thinking about maybe the cost of the books, cost of programs, because I know that like with anybody that any parents is to where any extra help that more likely that is provided even on the social media sites or anything like that, they may mention about that there's like what you call a yearly fee or something like that, to where you have to pay a little extra just to be able to assist the child, just to be able to assist somebody with any type of learning problems. So like with me though, that since I was growing up, I'm like, yeah, that I was in regular classes at times, but then it was like thinking about, well, you don't understand your work, well, we'll be able to transfer you to this class to be able to explain to you more. So it seems like I've gotten quite a bit used to it, to the point to where it's like, yeah, that just so teach me the basics or so about that, for what needs to be done. And I know, like with anybody, that whenever they're going to be having problems, it seems like to where that really is it really better to try to solve your own problems other than to just say that, well, deal with it. Well, that's your problem. You're on your own, and as well as that it's not going to get fixed, or something. So that's usually the way I think about it, is to where, like I mentioned before, is about any problems that anybody that's trying to manage and trying to help improve, to where that any problems that they may run into. And one of those could be is to where maybe reading or spelling, and as well as that trying to get something done. And I know, like with anybody, is to where while you're working on something, that if it's going to be maybe a job, an application or a resume or anything like that, that they may say is to where it may take up to 10 or 15 minutes to complete the information. And sometimes it may take longer. So at the time, it seems like to where that anybody that may want to where that there's going to be a situation to where it takes you longer than 15 minutes just to be able to work something. And some that may say, well, that there may be a time limit on this, as to where that if anything up to at least 1 hour. They say that 1 hour should give you enough time to go ahead and you'll provide the information that's asked for, what's required on the application or on a resume or any type of application. And we're like one to where that like with anybody's tour, that if it takes longer than an hour just to work something, and then sometimes it seems like to where if we call that maybe mental problem or a physical problem or anything like that, any type of problems, they're more likely that could wind up having to manage. And I know, like with Mike, with me though, that I keep looking at these pictures right here, and oh yeah, it's going to remind me of a number of stories. And one of those would be, it's like I would say that more than just school. I'm like, yeah, that if somebody were to invite me to maybe an event, or maybe I don't know, the Boy Scouts or something like that. I know I can maybe go on stories about what I can remember looking at some of these pictures too, about a lot of things that I had problems with. And I know sometimes that I do feel embarrassed really to talk about them, because looking at some of the work, and then some of the work that I do have around, if it was related to maybe solving math problems or maybe calculations, keeping things organized, and as well as for reading books and stuff like that. So I'm sure, like with anybody's tour, there could be maybe a subject matter to where if you're trying to find something to mention about is to where questions and answers to where any problems. And the way I think about it, though, is like a problem. There could have been a problem that was already answered. It's like yeah, that with the parents, though, the parents that may ask their kids about as to where their children, that their son or daughter, or maybe a cousin or so, about, hey, what happened during that time? Like, well, you don't remember what they talked about. You don't remember what the paper said or anything like that. So, and it seems like to where, like with anybody's, to where that any information that was available from maybe from my childhood history from back in the 19 from 1985 to about maybe 1997 to maybe early as of 2002, or since 2010 or so, that a lot of the paperwork that thinking about is to where that, yeah, from if it's going to be your IEP meetings or anything about what the teachers mention, is like the counselors as well as the principals. So like with anybody, that they may want to, or anything that is discussed during those meetings. And I went to some of those meetings, and I know with the parents, though, they may have gone to a few of those meetings too, and they talked about such and such, and one of those was about as to where that, yeah, that something that about Matthew, though, that he was born with with this problem, or he's got problems with. It's like that they even mention about. It's like the talking, interacting with all the other classmates, and as well as turning in his work on time. Other sorts of information. So it seems like to where that anything that don't require, anything that I don't, ask for assistance about, anything that I don't, ask for help for, it seems like, well, it's not professional. Just like, if I were to be maybe updating the status maybe on my computer, or, doing something online, working, doing some data online, or maybe completing an application online or so, then if I don't ask for help for that, then the more likely that they can maybe say, it's like, yeah, point the finger at you and thinking that, well, you didn't do it right. Well, you got to redo something. So it seems like to where that looking at some of these pictures right here, and I use these pictures even from the Dreamweaver examples that I posted from earlier, talking about like for senior, but this right here talks about, if we want to call this, between that I always also think about is to where do I want to do, like we say, it's like another part 4 or 5 or so of from what we do know, what we don't know about the concerns in the matter. But with this activity, I mainly want to talk about the problems. I know, like with anybody, that there could be, like, say, questions and answers for almost anything, even if it's not related to any type of problems. But maybe it's like any type of concerns to or something that's correct or so, that there is no problem, but there's just like an update that's going on with the database or something like that, or something that needs something more information in the research. But on the other hand, this right here contains pictures right here that Photoshop work, and I'm sure that anybody that may want to where that I'm sure we may have seen quite a few pictures. I keep thinking that if anybody has not seen enough pictures, but these right here will be some pictures of me what I would look like back whenever I was young, and I know for sure that this picture right here, if I can remember right, that it would have been my original hair look. So anybody that may want to, or hey, that that was you before you may even started kindergarten, because I know that with my kindergarten picture that had a little bit. I look a little bit look, I was at least 7 or 8 years old, but this picture right here, I was at least 5. I think 4 or 5, something like that in this picture. On a swing. So anybody that may want to, or that whenever a kid that gets up on the swing before they start school, that do they have any problems getting up on the swing, or sliding down, or jumping up and down, or anything like that. So just think about as to where, like with any doctors that they may want to, or that would kind of call that type of a disorder, to where that is it really what you call normal for kids to be jumping around and thinking that whenever they get up on the swing, that the way that they swing and the way that they slide down or so, and then but on the other hand, for how they interact. But the way I think about it, though, is like you see right here with these pictures right here, and I know that school, though, school is that we may call, it's like for hard, though, it's like anything that we more likely would be doing whenever we're in class, is that like I mentioned before, is to where other students that they may wind up working ahead, and sometimes is to where that whenever you're going to be in class, maybe with other students who are in there, just to learn the same things that you're learning. But then now the problem is to where that whatever that you're working on, that they may seem to ask as to, well, what's the problem, Matthew? Like, hey, it's, you have 15 minutes to do this or do that. So, and I know, like with anybody's tour, they're going to be talking to the schools, you say the counselors, about anything of the problem of the matter, and you're like Warren, tour that hey, that well, it's that the people in there are learning about the same thing as everybody's going to have their own learning field, to where that they that they're able to do their work in like a reasonable timely manner within about maybe 15 minutes or so. So at the time the way I think about it, though, is like, yeah, ever since I was in kindergarten or so, they're trying to trying to work with maybe a few blocks and try to solve a few puzzles, and as well as you're trying to solve a few other problems as well. You have right here some examples right here. I could maybe go on about a few other examples from where I remember from kindergarten, from the fifth grade, about math problems, or if it's any type of skills working improvements for education. And I know, like with anybody's, to where whenever you're going to be in school, it seems like a lot of things that maybe I don't quite understand. And I keep thinking, though, is that help button is to where I keep thinking that, yeah, it's only available for me because I seem like to where I always need assistance with it. Whenever I'm looking at something that I'm working on, and then, you may have to pause for a few seconds just because you don't understand it. So you got to select help, just, there's like a help button, or you got to ask for help just to be able to understand it. So, I've had that problem ever since I was young, to where that it's happened so many times to where I ask for assistance with something, and anybody that may want, to where that, well, don't even expect no answers from me because I don't got them, because on the other hand too, I'm the one that needs to ask the questions about how to solve this and how to solve that. But really, on the other hand, there may be some people that they may not know exactly about something, and I guess almost everybody's going to ask for help. But the way I think about it, though, is that the type of help that more likely I could be asking for really is toward that, really about how to work something, as well as that, yeah, that, ever since I was young, that I wanted what you call the best talented artistic work. It's like for anything that's creative, and, somebody else, maybe on social sites, social media, so somebody else maybe in the classroom or so, or somebody else maybe on Facebook that may have like maybe a better example for what somebody's looking for, and they like want to where that this is more likely what we need. But but so far as with Matthew, though, I'm like, yeah, well, that it don't fulfill the requirements or anything like that. So like with anybody that with me, though, especially with my cases, that I'm like, whenever I'm working something, I try to solve the problem, and on my own time being, before I ask for help, I try to see how far I can get with accomplishing the goal, other than is to where that yeah, that almost all the time that I got asked for help, and like with almost anybody else, to where that nobody else ask for help just because that they got more professional experience. They got they have more they have more professional ability, to where that they can actually work something and understand something. So that I kind of feel sometimes like, you say, I'm on the bottom of the puzzle, to where that puzzle piece, to where hey, you don't have all the requirements it takes just to be able to reach the top. It's like to be able to score a top 85% or so on a test or so, just because that well, you didn't you were not able to accomplish, you were missing a few things, and as well as any problems that you were having to manage as well, that they were able to get worked out or so, but get worked out and accomplished. But that's the thing about if it's going to be with any student or anybody who's going to be working something, is to where that any problems or solutions that we may come up with, you know, during a daily base, and we weren't, to where that really that at the time that I gotten quite a bit used to it, to where it's really that I get frustrated whenever it gets me behind on what I'm trying to do, especially. But I try to work out on my own time to how to fix those problems. So that's just a thing about us, to where like with any student like me, is to where that ever since I was 5, that yeah, there's going to be no problem at all, and it seems like to where that really that I'm kind of used to where that there's going to be a problem, to where like you give me a problem to where I can solve, compared to it there's no problems, and there's no problems for me to solve, and that gives me the situation to where okay, well, what am I supposed to do now? But On the other hand, that sometimes problems though is that like with anybody, sure, any problems that we're having to deal with, that we look at those and sometimes it could be very frustrating because of the subject matter to where you have right here as an example right here. This right here is like a chart example right here of any type of work that needs to be done, and sometimes though that it would look like maybe like a blank page right here is to where it a lot of things that maybe I don't understand, a few things that I may not remember and I don't understand, and I had to ask for assistance. So that's just a thing that whenever I was in kindergarten, that people may say is to her that really all you have to do is look it up, or all you have to do is match the shapes, with the slots or something like that, or maybe move the diagonal arrows or something like that, just to be able to complete the assignments, or so solve math problems, or maybe read the book and then go ahead and turn in a paper or two about what the research is about. But sometimes though that some people that may say though, I keep thinking though as to where if I try to work something, it's like oh yeah, I go ahead and experiment around with something, I go ahead and see if this works and see whether that works, and I just turn it in. And I know with some teachers that may say is to where that well, you didn't do this right because this is how the assignment is supposed to be worked right here. That you got too many, wondering what that's about, wondering what this is about. So that's another thing I know I talked about too. That really like with anybody that they may warrant to where that whenever you see some previous work and there are some things that maybe that could be problems related, and you're like warrant to where that okay, well it was fixed, it got fixed later on, I did get assistance from it, it was solved, but then so just think about as to any updates that need to be performed. But on your hand too, whenever we look at that, like warrant to where that like with me though, that I try to work out to where I try to solve the problems, as best I can, and think about other than like just giving up on it. Like Warren to where that really that there it seems like that there's more than what people can see whenever you actually fix something and actually solve a problem and accomplish a goal compared to if you just leave it alone. Like, well, I'm not gonna bother with it anymore. So half the time you're like Warren to where why would you want to do that and just say you're not going to bother with it anymore whenever that some people that may say, well, really that what is a marriage to anybody anyway over the fact that because that they that person like the other person's work compared to mine, but so that's just the thing that I kind of see it in my dreams to where that yeah, if anybody had those dreams before is to where that they're going to be in the classroom and thinking about is to where that a lot of the work that they got to do and everybody else in class, oh yeah, they've been done with their work a long time ago, so they're kind of waiting for you to get done with your work if you're going to get done with your work. And well, it's not done all that right, all that yet. And yeah, that you were working on something, you didn't get that score, or you were not able to pass the class, or you were not able to get paid, the way that get the points or so the way you wanted it, because of the fact about is because that problems came up. And like with anybody, that whenever you come up with any type of problems or solutions, and thinking about it to where that really is all the problems considered your fault. And like with anybody's to where like with me though, these right here will be examples right here of besides students photos. I know some of these before are this one right here, if I can remember right, was not even my class photo, but this was right here. I think two of these, I think that they were the pictures from either family or friends events or something like that. But this right here will be like say yeah that are you going to have any problems maybe participating maybe our family reunion or maybe class reunion or anything like that, and you're like wanting to where well all you gotta do is just get in the picture. But sometimes so that really what are the requirements about being in the picture, huh? Sometimes anybody that may warrant to where well you gotta wear makeup just to be in the picture, or hey, that you had to wink, you had to blink an eye just to be able to take the picture, or just to be able to get in the picture, just to be able to get in the picture, that you had to, that you had to look excited, you had to look happy whenever you're in the picture or so. So it seems like to where just like getting in the picture just to have your picture taken, sometimes it seems like we may think that is to where the question goes by is to where, are there any requirements just for getting in the picture, huh? Do you have to have an outfit on that says as to where that, the previously accomplished, student, and then going by the year and like maybe the school and then maybe the year that, that was presented by. So like with anybody, it is to where that for any assistance I may need, it's like with anybody's to where that, if you're going to be working a math problem, and at the time it seems like to where that's why that some students, that whenever they get frustrated enough, that they may want to think about something that maybe that they can create just to be able to show the class, as to where after class is done and after your work is done, then maybe that you would like to show them something that you learned. And then usually a lot of times, that's usually where I think about with almost everything that I do. That if I come up to problems with almost anything that I'm trying to learn about and trying to understand, I try to think of something that that I can come up with, and then maybe try to create is to where that, yeah, have you all seen this before? Yeah, this is something I came up with, and this is something that I solved in my own timely manner. So ever since I was in kindergarten, like with anybody, that yeah, that for any students, that they're going to be having problems almost every day, and thinking about is one way of how to solve those problems, to be a part of the group, is to where they're going to go ahead and go home and maybe pick up a favorite book that they like reading during a daily basis, and take it to school and show their classmates or something like that. Yeah, this my favorite cartoon TV show, or something like that, or my favorite book. This is what I want to. This is a story about so and so. So, and I can think of a few books, a number of books that I can remember reading about, and I think like besides author books, or any other type of books, and I can remember that there's a few books, like besides the Dr. Seuss's, I think Green Eggs and Ham or something like that, that I remember reading about, but any other type of children's books, and I know with me though, learning a new skill, like with anybody, if you're going to be learning about how to read books, especially on a smartphone, or maybe an iPhone, or maybe an Android phone, is that you're like wanting to, or ways of how to read books, and especially children books, is that how to download and order the books online by mobile. So you're like worried to her that really questions and answers about that. But you see right here is like with anybody's to where if you're going to have any problems, I guess the question could go by is to where, well, that's your problem. You deal with that. But I don't think anybody's necessarily saying that at all. I'm like that. I really just think that yeah, that there are problems that more likely, like yeah, that you may be one of the only ones, and maybe in class, that you may have to ask for assistance more often. You may be one of the five that needs to have assistance with working something. But really, what's the best answer for that of knowing about is to where any problems, more likely that we try to manage, though, is that to where that really that you know those tutors, those specialists, they may think as to where that, yeah, learning disability, this, you got learning disability in that, you got problems, you got other medical problems that maybe not everybody wants to deal with or so. But then on the other hand, that you're like Warren, to where, yeah, well, if I got so many problems, I'll think about what I am good at compared to where I'm not good at, if I'm confident of solving this or solving that. So that's usually the way I think about it too. So think about as to where for any kid, for their future goes, is to where the base I like to talk about the future though is that I may think about a number of things they say about the future to where that how could they be true if they haven't happened yet? But on your hand, that seems like to where a lot of things that I think about, that I talk about, is to where that, whenever I'm working on some of my classwork and a lot of things that I don't understand, but it's like, I may need that assistance with it, but then on your hand, it seems like to where really that for anybody that needs assistance, I'm sure it's available for you anytime that you need it. Just ask for it and work on for whatever that needs to be worked on. Make a time in a day where I can meet up. Just to get assistance, but on your hand, it seems like to where if there's like anything between right and wrong doing about asking for help for any assistance that more likely anybody would need, and a lot of times the way I think about those for any questions that go on is to where like anybody say that for answers though. So anything that may have happened a long time ago, like with anybody that they may want to work from what we do know and what we don't know, and one of those would be is to where hey that you know, can you explain a little bit, Mike? Well, I tell you one thing. I don't even know why you want the answers to come from me, because there was a time and a point to where that a lot of those answers were coming from either from the school, from the specialist, or so. And I don't know why you're asking me. So like with anybody, that if they were to ask me a question, it just seems like to where, well, I'm not the one that really to where that to answer the questions. Like that I ask the questions and then somebody else answers them for me. So it seems like a lot of times, if anybody's going to be having problems to the point to where that a lot of those questions, that yeah, well, I'm not, I'm either, I'm not supposed to answer them, or I'm not qualified to answer them. So it seems like to where, like with anybody's, to where that I'm sure there's always going to be a question to where that yeah that anybody they may ask about your work, and anything that maybe somebody that may not remember either, and between what you call true and false, and on your hand that for like that best of your ability. But whenever we look at the financial aid information as well as for our tax forms, and I can tell anybody here that this picture right here that before I even started working, that this right here, that that I may not known about what 4 divided by 7, or something like that, or maybe any type of math problem, 8 times 9 or anything like that. Like you're working on the math problems, and you're like learning to where that really that if anybody were to try to do like say it's like a if they were to be spending time like for any math problems, so like with Illustrator right here, I don't know if anybody has thought about this, but you see right here, this is just an idea, and I know with anybody's to where that they look at this right here, and this right here will be like, okay, example right here of a problem right here, like how to solve a problem, and then you may think about it to where after you're working something, after you spend about maybe an hour working on something, and you may decide to, oh, okay, you're going to go ahead and take the extra 15 minutes to think of something to where, hey, I'm going to go ahead and try to solve my own problem here. I'm going to go ahead and try to think of an answer, but then think about, what does it look like backwards? Oh, hell, okay, this is what I found right here. This is what I discovered about, is to where a problem that I was able to look at and research, but then I also was thinking about is to experiment around with it, to explore it, to where what does it look like backwards, or what does it look like maybe with another color or something like that. So anybody that may want to where that the work can more likely go on, but then on your hand that seems like, what do we call that, to where that the teachers that may ask questions about something, and besides the teachers, any type of problems that seems like to where that it seems like problems really puts you on a restriction to where that what you're able to do at the time, and is knowing about any problems that are solved, and like with anybody, is to where that whenever you have any problems with almost anything, it just seems like to where some that may say that you're on your own. Well, that's your problem, you deal with it. But on the other hand, I think there are some that may say, "Oh no, you can ask for help anytime. We're here for you. That this is please follow the instructions online. Please visit online. Read that. Read the documentation." So, and I know, like with anybody, is to where that they may get frustrated, depressed, and then they may mention about it to where it's very complicated, especially for me, that to where you may meet some people who don't have any problems at all, and you may meet somebody who may have more problems that you have. You may meet somebody that may have about the same problems, but then on your hand too, that they may say to her that now they're want to ask you, get some feedback from you or so. So the way I think about it, though, is like anybody probably say, yeah, it's already coming up on over a half an hour you've been talking about this and like Warren Tour, but still, this contains a lot of information. I'm sure, like with anybody, any students out there that Warren Tour, that for looking at pictures right here, and I don't know if I'm gonna be doing a part 2 about this, and anybody that may Warren Tour, that hey, that you ought to do one, maybe include like maybe a paper or two or so about analysis of your research work or any type of web problems. I know with anybody who's seen some of the work from the Dreamweaver that you're like wanting to, if you run into any problems with any software program, if one of those that stops running, and then thinking about necessarily to where now are you going to go ahead and maybe try to research about the problem to where you contact technical support, or are you just going to leave it alone? So some people that may ask that to her, well, why'd you leave it alone for? Like, the answer could be is to her, hey, I didn't think that it was my problem at the time, or during that time that I thought it would just take a little bit more time because, on the other hand, too, I also keep thinking about really if it's my job or not. Is that really my job to fix the problem? Like, well, because I know, like with anybody, to where that for any type of task or anything like that, is to where any problems that more likely that we do come up with, and you're like Warren, to where that it seems like to where that whenever you're able to solve a problem, and they may ask you to explain how did you solve that problem, and you're like Warren, to where do I have to go into details about it? Like, well, we would like you to explain a little bit about what you learned. I guess it seems like at the time that anything that we do fix, that you're like Warren, to where that if anybody really knows or even cares about how I solved the problem, that they really want me to explain about all that subject matter to where, I after clicking on this and after moving this or after posting this or something like that. So a lot of the questions and answers, and I know like with anybody is to where that if they really care to know about this or that, about did they really care to know about hey that oh well the work okay, well it worked for you. And I know like with anybody is to where if they weren't, to where the question goes by is to where will any professionals take anything that works? I'm like anything that works, such as well if it worked for you, but then they're like Warren, to where how did it work for you? And so whenever you're working on something, you spend about maybe 2 hours working on something, 2 or 3 hours, maybe 5 hours working on something that works. And then now it's like the situation goes by as to where now you have people that are going to maybe be emailing you or maybe contacting you about, hey, can you explain about how'd you do that? How'd you get this to work? And sometimes the subject may go by as to where, what are you talking about? Like, well, there was a problem that was fixed, or there was a solution that was fixed. So sometimes, though, like with anybody, to where whenever there's problems, and that basically means does that mean that something that stops working or something that's not working the way it's supposed to? But then whenever it gets fixed, and then there may be people that may say that, hey, well, how'd you fix it? So that's just a thing that like with anybody like me, to speak up about something, and you're like Warren, to where for any problems that you're like Warren, to where that really that the answers that more likely that I can maybe give feedback for, but then sometimes anybody that may warrant to where that really I'm like, well, do you really want to talk about how you solved the problem or any issues that happened during that time? And you're like warrant to where sometimes like really, I'm like, really, anything that needs to be talked about is to where that, you had to deal with the problem, especially the cost of the books and the cost of supplies, and like with anybody that, any students that they may want to where financial aid, that you may run into that problem to where paying for the class, you're paying for the books and supplies for what you were charged for as well. So like the prices though, it's like with anybody that may want to where you run into some problems with trying to order something, and sometimes it's like for any questions that anybody like wanted to where really that why do you ask the question whenever you already have the answer to it? But then some may say, well, the answer may just be a little bit different from what we may, from our own feedback as well, any concerns in the matter. So anybody that may warrant or any questions that more likely to remain about that, and you're like warrant or that any interviews especially, and sometimes it seems like to where looking at these photos right here, these were be like might be my class ID, and people ask you questions about it, and sometimes if you feel comfortable and confident talking about it, and you're like warrant or really that you already know the answer to that, don't you? Well, it was a problem, that I had to take care of, and during that time, that if everything was able to get fixed, and as well as for anything that about the concern of the matter. So anyway, but there you have it. Right, talk about say for the problems and the questions, problems, and then knowing about like with anybody if there's any type of problems and knowing about for how to solve them. But it's like for best of I say for the hard work and knowing about yeah, for like for what we can succeed in, for the great scores, like for us, like for good luck for everyone, like for how to solve problems, like for knowing about for what we learned. Other than that, you man, make 25, and thanks for watching.